A lot of people don't believe in Lane Kiffin. I don't blame you, okay? But let me get into this a little bit. A simple question I ask is, do you believe that failure is a necessary part of success? Do you believe you have to fail before you succeed? Most of you would answer yes. Most of you would say failure, if processed the right way, is instrumental in ultimately contributing to your success. Anyone who's achieved any level of success in business, in your personal life, you understand this concept. And yet, a lot of you are college football fans, and you totally write coaches off. Once they fail at one stop or two stops, you write them off. And I'm not necessarily of that mentality. And I'll give you a very, very recent example of how this illustration really drives home the point. And that's Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron had been the head coach at Ole Miss. And Ed Orgeron was not a very good head coach at Ole Miss. His record, as we like to say, spoke for itself. And so Ed Orgeron, it looks for all the world like he's never going to get another head coaching job. He's a position coach. He's a really good recruiter. But, hey, we tried this whole experiment of Ed Orgeron coaching at the head coaching level out at Ole Miss, and it didn't work. And that's all anyone could remember when LSU decided Ed Orgeron's going to be our head coach. Okay, well, the most popular refrain by 10 Miles was, he's not going to be successful. And when someone pressed you on why, the most common answer by 10 Miles was, well, look at what he did at Ole Miss. Well, he failed at Ole Miss. A lot of people just took that to mean, well, it's automatic, he's going to fail here. We know who he is as a head coach. Never considering that it's possible that someone could learn lessons in a failure that are applicable to a future opportunity if they're given that opportunity. And so now Lane Kiffin had opportunities everywhere from Knoxville, Tennessee to Oakland to USC. And then he gets plucked off the scrap heap, goes to Alabama, gets himself a head job 3 years later at Florida Atlantic, and now he's right back in the SEC. There's a lot we don't know with Lane Kiffin. Let's talk about what we do know. I'll tell you, I'm not selling my Lane Kiffin stock like a lot of other people are. Here's what we do know. Lane Kiffin is very highly regarded as a football mind. A lot of people doubt him. A lot of people chip away at the veneer, but they never say it's because the guy lacks football acumen. There are other reasons, intangible in nature, and I don't have a problem with you bringing them up. The past is the past. Facts are facts. But what we do know is that guy is one of the best offensive minds in the sport. We also know, and if you don't, I can tell you, he is loved nearly universally by players of the teams that he's on. He had 3 years under Nick Saban after he hit rock bottom. We know that. We know from there he went to Florida Atlantic, and a lot of folks are going to leave that stop at Florida Atlantic out of the mountain of reasons to doubt Lane Kiffin. They're going to leave it out because he was successful at Florida Atlantic as a head coach. Now, we also know he's a lightning rod. That's not a bad thing for Ole Miss. That's a good thing. But here's the other thing we know. There was a market for Lane Kiffin. Do you remember when Ole Miss landed him? Ole Miss wasn't the only program after him. So there's a lot we do know about him. And the folks who doubt him, there's always this giant but after they state their reasons. And the giant but is, but that guy's a good football coach now. He knows offense. He knows how to call plays. He knows how to design game plans. He knows how to get his players in the right spot. Players gravitate towards him. He can recruit lights out. So there are a lot of football boxes that Lane Kiffin checks. It's the mirror that's been his worst enemy. So the biggest question to me is not about Lane Kiffin's football acumen. The biggest question is the guy in the mirror ready to lead men? Is he ready to be a leader of a football program? If he is, all the other stuff's in place. I can't know that. You can't know that. Two entities can know the answer to that. And that's God and that's Lane Kiffin, because those are the only two that really know that man's heart. If his heart's in the right place, Ole Miss is going to win a lot of football games, a lot of them. His shortcomings, I'm telling you, they're non-chalk, which is a football term to say it doesn't have to do anything with him designing a play on 3rd and 7. It's all intangible. It's all off the field. It's all been of his own doing. And I don't think if he were sitting right here, he'd really argue that. Where's his mind at? If it's ready to lead a program effectively, I look forward to watching him. If I were to try and guess my way into Lane Kiffin's mind, if I were to try to put myself, I guess I could say it that way. If I were to try and put myself in Lane Kiffin's shoes right now and previous few years, I think to myself, he's on the scrap heap and he gets picked up by Nick Saban. And he deals with a lot of stuff and has to grin and bear it in Tuscaloosa because he knows he's paying a price for his own shortcomings. And then he gets a head job at Florida Atlantic, and all the while, you know what he's watching? He's watching his program right here, and with one eye, he's got to be watching guys like Lincoln Riley doing what he's doing at Oklahoma. With all the respect in the world for Lincoln Riley, but I can tell you whether you believe it or not, the guy on the bottom of the screen right here, for those of you watching on YouTube, Lane Kiffin, looks at Lincoln Riley and says, I'm every bit the equal of Lincoln Riley. In fact, I'm probably better than Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day, Tom Herman, a lot of these young guys getting shots at major programs. The only reason that's not me is because of reasons that I've inflicted upon myself. If he's got it cleaned up, Lane Kiffin in the not too distant future, whether it be in Oxford, Mississippi or somewhere else, is Lincoln Riley. He is Tom Herman. He is Ryan Day. He is a superstar coach that still has 25 plus years left. That could be Lane Kiffin. Only thing that's standing in the way, Lane Kiffin. I pull for Lane Kiffin. I'm selfish in the reasons I pull for Lane Kiffin, which are not hard to figure out. The thing about Lane Kiffin is, if I were to ask right now, I'm going to give everyone watching 5 seconds and everyone listening 5 seconds, come up in your own words with your opinion on Kiffin. And then I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, shoot. A lot of you said, I can't stand him. He's a jerk, he's arrogant, whatever. And some of you said, I like him. None of you said, don't really have an opinion one way or the other. Everyone has some opinion of Lane Kiffin. Those are the best kind of guys to have in the sport. And selfishly, as a guy who grew up covering the SEC, when the conference has been at its best, those are the kinds of personalities that have been down here. But you don't have to sacrifice football IQ to have those personalities. When you pay the kind of money they pay in the SEC, you can just get the best of both worlds. You can draw the Venn diagram, and then you got the best characters and the best coaches. There's some overlap there. Hang out in that area where the overlap is.